I used to think that home was the safest place in the world. That illusion shattered the night. I saw a man-esque face staring at me through my bedroom window on the second floor. Before we start, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like, and comment below if you enjoy true horror stories like this one. Stay until the end because this story ends in a way you won't expect, and you'll never sleep with your window open again. It was mid-November, one of those quiet, gray weeks when the days melt into each other. My parents had gone on a weekend trip, leaving me alone in the house. I was 22, in college, and I'd done this plenty of times before. We lived on the edge of town, surrounded by trees that creaked at night, but I'd never been afraid of them. Not until that night. It started around 11:30 p.m. I was lying on my bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard something tap against my window. Just once. A light, delicate click. At first, I thought it was a branch or maybe the wind, but then it happened again, slightly louder this time. Tap. I froze. My room was on the second floor. There were no trees close enough to reach the glass. I turned off my phone and listened. The house was dead silent, except for the distant hum of the refrigerator downstairs. Then I heard it again, 3 quick taps in a row, like fingernails. I got up, heart pounding, and slowly approached the window. I pulled the curtain aside just a little, enough to peek out. There was nothing. Just the faint reflection of my face in the glass in the backyard below, swallowed by darkness. I sighed, trying to laugh it off. Maybe it was a bird or some insect. I closed the curtain and went back to bed. 5 minutes later, I heard something new. A soft scraping sound, like someone dragging a fingernail across the outside of the glass. Long, deliberate, slow. This time, I didn't look. I couldn't. I just sat up and stared at the window, every nerve in my body screaming that something wasn't right. The scraping went on for a few seconds, then stopped. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My hand was shaking so badly the beam jittered across the room. I pointed it toward the window. That's when I saw it. For a split second, there was a reflection that wasn't mine. A pale, distorted face pressed against the glass, eyes wide, unmoving, lips stretched into a crooked half-smile. I screamed and stumbled backward, dropping my phone. When I picked it up again, the face was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I locked the door, turned on every light, and stayed awake until sunrise, convincing myself that maybe I'd imagined it. The next morning, everything looked normal. I even checked outside, expecting to find footprints or something, but the ground beneath the window was untouched solid dirt and a patch of dead leaves. No ladder, no prints, nothing. That almost made it worse. Later that evening, I told my friend Ethan about it. He laughed, said I was probably dreaming or seeing my reflection weirdly. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But that night, it happened again. Around midnight, I was brushing my teeth when I heard a faint creaking from outside my bathroom window. I froze mid-motion. The blinds were half open, and in the reflection of the mirror, I thought I saw movement. A dark shape. I turned slowly, toothbrush still in my mouth, and looked out. Someone was standing in the yard. He was tall, thin, almost lanky, and facing the house, not moving. Just standing there. The porch light barely reached him, but I could make out his face, or rather, the fact that he seemed to be wearing something over it. A white mask, smooth and featureless, like those blank Halloween ones. I remember the sound of the toothbrush clattering into the sink as I stumbled backward. When I looked again, he was gone. I called Ethan immediately, panic flooding my voice. He told me to call the police, but when they arrived 20 minutes later, the yard was empty. They looked around, found nothing. The officer was kind but clearly skeptical. Maybe a prank, he said. We've had a few reports of kids wearing masks around the area lately. Probably just that. But the way he said probably didn't help. That night, I didn't go to bed at all. I stayed in the living room with the lights on, clutching a baseball bat I hadn't touched in years. At around 3 a.m., I heard something creak upstairs. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the house settling. It was a slow, deliberate step. I froze, gripping the bat tighter. Another step. Then another. The sound was coming from the hallway near my bedroom. I wanted to call the police again, but I couldn't even move. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned everything else out. Then I forced myself to stand and creep toward the stairs, every board groaning under my feet. The air felt thick, electric. When I reached the top of the stairs, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My bedroom door, locked from the inside just hours ago, was wide open, and from where I stood, I could see the window curtains slowly swaying, as if someone had just slipped out. I didn't sleep again that night. I didn't even sit down. I waited, bat in hand, until the first signs of morning filtered through the windows. Every minute dragged, every sound made me jump. When daylight finally came, I went upstairs. My bedroom looked exactly how I left it. Except for the window, the latch was broken. It dangled uselessly, like someone had forced it open. My stomach twisted. There were faint smudges on the glass. Not fingerprints, more like the oily marks of someone's skin. Someone had been touching it from the outside. That was it. I called my parents and told them I wanted to stay with a friend until they got home. They didn't even argue. They could hear the fear in my voice. Ethan picked me up an hour later. As soon as I got into his car, I felt the tension start to ease. We drove back to his apartment, and for the first time in days, I actually managed to fall asleep on his couch. But around noon, Ethan shook me awake. His face was pale. "Dude," he said quietly, "you need to see this." He handed me his phone. On the screen was a local Facebook group post from early that morning. "Anyone else see that guy hanging around the Ridgewood area last night? Tall, wearing a white mask, just standing outside people's houses." The comment section was flooded with replies. Half a dozen people had seen the same thing, someone creeping around their yards, sometimes tapping on windows. The police were apparently looking into it. It wasn't just me. I felt both relieved and terrified at the same time. That night, Ethan insisted I crash at his place again. But even there, I couldn't relax. I kept glancing at the windows, checking that they were locked, drawing the curtains tight. We stayed up watching TV, trying to distract ourselves, until sometime after midnight. That's when we heard it, a faint thud. Outside. Then another. Ethan muted the TV. We both listened. The sound came again, closer this time, like footsteps in the grass outside his apartment window. We exchanged a look. Neither of us said anything. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and went to the window. I followed, every muscle in my body tense. He lifted one corner of the blinds and shined the light outside. At first, there was nothing, just darkness and the faint glow of the parking lot. Then the beam cut movement, someone standing behind a tree about 20 feet away. Tall. Still. Watching. The white mask reflected the light. Ethan swore under his breath and dropped the blinds. He grabbed his phone and called the police. I sat frozen, staring at the closed window, feeling that same crawling panic I'd felt back home. It took less than 10 minutes for the cops to arrive. They searched the area, but, again, found nothing. Not a trace. The officer who took Ethan's statement said there, "Devin, multiple reports that night, masked figure sightings all across the neighborhood." We didn't sleep after that. For the next 2 days, we barely left the apartment. I called my parents, told them to check the house with the police before returning. They promised they'd be careful, but on the third night, I made a mistake. I decided to go back home. I told myself it was fine. The police were already patrolling the area. The neighborhood was on alert, and my parents would be back the next day. I just wanted to grab some clothes and my laptop. That was it. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal, peaceful, even. The late afternoon light filtered through the trees, and for a moment, I wondered if it had all been some bizarre nightmare. I parked, got out, and walked up the front steps. The door was still locked. Everything was exactly as it should be. Inside, the air was stale but familiar. I grabbed a duffel bag from my room, stuffed a few things inside. I was about to leave when something caught my eye. The curtain in my bedroom window was slightly open, just a crack. enough to let in a thin blade of light. I was sure I'd closed it before leaving. I hesitated, then walked over to shut it completely. As I did, I noticed something outside on the ground beneath the window. Footprints. Deep, clear impressions in the dirt. They hadn't been there before, and they weren't facing the house. They were facing away, as if whoever made them had just been standing there, staring in. A shiver ran down my spine. I backed away from the window, grabbed my bag, and headed for the stairs. That's when I heard it, a soft creak from the floor above me. My breath caught. There was no above. Just the attic, a place I hadn't been in months. Another sound followed like a slow drag across the floorboards. Something or someone was up there. I should have run. I know that now. But fear does strange things to you. Instead of leaving, I found myself creeping toward the attic door at the end of the hallway, my heart hammering in my throat. The pull-string light dangled just out of reach. I grabbed it, yanked it down, and the bulb flickered to life. The attic was small, cluttered with old boxers and furniture covered in sheets. The smell of dust and wood hit me immediately. For a moment, I saw nothing unusual. I almost convinced myself that I'd imagined the noise again. Then something moved behind one of the sheets. A faint rustle. I took a step closer. My hand was shaking as I reached for the edge of the cloth. I could hear my pulse in my ears. When I pulled it back, nothing. Just a mirror leaning against the wall. My own reflection stared back at me, pale and trembling. I exhaled shakily, laughing under my breath from sheer adrenaline. Then my reflection blinked. My body went cold. The mirror image blinked again out of sync with me, and baying me in the reflection. A white masked figure slowly rose from behind a stack of boxers. I didn't turn around. I didn't think. I bolted down the stairs, almost tripping over myself. I ran out the front door, into the car, and peeled out of the driveway without even looking back. My phone buzzed as I drove. It was Ethan, calling over and over, but I couldn't answer. I was crying, shaking, barely able to breathe. When I finally pulled into a gas station, I answered. He was yelling, panicked. "Where are you?" I told him what happened, everything. There was a long silence on the line before he said, quietly, "Man, that's impossible. I was just at your house. I called you because your lights were on upstairs." I remember my heart dropping into my stomach when Ethan said that. "What do you mean you were just there?" I stammered. He hesitated. "About 15 minutes ago. I drove by because I saw your car wasn't in the driveway, but the upstairs light was on. I thought maybe you forgot to turn it off, so I went to knock." He paused. I could hear his breathing quicken, but someone looked out the window. For a few seconds, I couldn't even respond. My mouth went dry, and the air felt too heavy to breathe. "You're saying there's someone in my house right now?" "Yeah," he whispered. A tall guy, pale face, just staring at me through the glass. That was all I needed to hear. I called the police immediately, barely able to keep my voice steady. They told me to stay where I was, that they'd send a unit to my address. But part of me couldn't just sit there. Primera de tono so. Against every instinct in my body, I drove back. The house was dark when I arrived. No lights, no sound. I parked down the street and turned off the headlights, watching from a distance. Nothing moved. Then, just as I was about to call Ethan again, I saw it. A flicker of movement behind the upstairs curtain. The silhouette of a tall man walking slowly past the window. Felt sick. My body was trembling so violently I could barely hold my phone. The police finally pulled up a few minutes later, 2 cars, lights flashing silently. They approached the house, weapons drawn. I watched as they went inside. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it might burst. After a few tense minutes, one of the officers came back out and waved me over. "There's no one here," he said. "We checked every room. The windows are locked, doors secure. You sure you saw someone?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him that I knew what I saw, but I could barely get the words out. He sighed, writing something in his notebook. "Look, you've had a few break-ins in the area lately. Might be someone watching the neighborhood. I'll have a patrol car drive by tonight." And that was it. They left. I didn't want to step foot inside again, but my bag with all my stuff was still upstairs. I told myself I'd grab it quickly and get the hell out. The house felt wrong the moment I walked in. Too quiet. Too still. Even the air smelled stale, like someone had been inside for too long without opening a window. I crept up the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. My flashlight beam shook as it swept across the walls. When I reached my bedroom door, I hesitated. The door was slightly ajar, though I was sure I'd closed it before leaving. I pushed it open with my foot. The room looked untouched except for the mirror. The same mirror I'd seen in the attic was now standing in the middle of my room, facing the window. I froze. It wasn't there before. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but curiosity, stupid, dangerous curiosity, kept me rooted. I took a step closer, then I know that the closer I got, the colder the air fell, like the room itself was exhaling frost. My reflection looked warped, stretched, and then behind me in the reflection I saw the closet door move just a little. A spoon, a round flashlight trembling in my hand. The door was closed now. Completely. I swallowed hard and forced myself to walk toward it. My hand reached for the handle. My pulse thundered in my ears. I pulled it open. Empty. Only clothes. Shoes. Shadows. I exhaled shakily, lowering the flashlight. And that's when I saw it. Underneath the hanging shirts, barely visible, was a small rectangular hole in the wall. A crawl space. One I'd never noticed before. And from inside it came the faint sound of breathing. Slow. Wet. Real. I stumbled backward just as something shifted inside the hole. A hand pail. Thin. Veins, bulging, slid out and pressed against the floorboards. Then another. That's when I ran. I bolted down the stairs and out the front door, leaving everything behind. I didn't look back. I drove straight to the police station and refused to go home again. When they investigated the next morning, the crawl space was empty. But the officer told me something that made my stomach twist. The dust inside was disturbed, as if someone had been lying there for a while. Whoever it was, they'd been living in my house. Probably 4 days, maybe weeks. No one was ever caught. They took fingerprints from the window and the closet door, but there were nothing to trace. The house was sold a few months later. My parents moved away. I haven't been back since, but sometimes when I wake up at night, I still think about that mirror, because the police didn't take it. I didn't either. It wasn't even listed in the report. And a few weeks ago, I got a message from the family who bought the house. They found my old number in a drawer and thought it was funny to reach out. To text side, "Hey, random question, did you leave an old mirror in the upstairs room? My daughter says she sees someone standing behind her in it at night." I blocked the number immediately, but I can't stop picturing it. That white mask, those eyes staring through glass, always watching, always waiting. Sometimes I wonder if it ever really left that house, or if it just found somewhere else to hide. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Remember, keep your doors locked, your windows shut, and never ignore the sound of tapping glass. If this story sent chills down your spine, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment below which part creeped you out the most. You never know who might be watching through your window tonight.